strong and healthy psychologically, we invariably turn to external representatives. The parents, the politicians, the teachers, the evangelists, the heroes, the authority figures, the establishment representatives, whoever. And all manner of horrors have arisen because we do this. So yes, our world is full of horror and genocide and mayhem. Let's start discovering why. The approach of Pluto now will arouse fear, paranoia, and the whole cocktail of these darker emotions. That's why we're having this talk. It's because, you see, we're not going to get away with it anymore. Very soon now, it's already actually been happening, but get ready for it. Now these effects can confuse you. They can confuse and threaten both protagonist and antagonist. See, you may not be a generator or even a creator of dark, toxic energy too much, right? But you certainly will be the receiver of it from those who are. So you're going to have to know about what's coming, because if you don't, and the masks start coming down, and this toxicity starts coming out in people around you that you think you love, or that they've been fooling you into thinking that they love you, let's put it that way, you're going to be very shocked, and as a result, might do something very off or wrong, or you can be destabilized. And I don't want that to happen. I believe that the good people should have good times ahead. Shouldn't be again having to start from scratch again. Well, we can help that happen by having some knowledge about what might be coming down tomorrow, so that you're not completely shattered. Subsequently, the individuals will feel deeply insecure, and as a result tend to cleave even more vehemently to the known and familiar Saturnian archetypes. And the one I'm most concerned with and thinking about the most is known as the animus, which is a Latin word for the father, or more colloquially, Big Daddy. Very important archetype that make up ego consciousness. And very, very prevalent in the world. Big Daddy is what it's known as. And it has the most important effect. As we understand what our egos are doing, we'll understand why we create. Now, of course, we know that what is Big Daddy? It's nothing more than a re-scripting of the old Jehovah. I mean, this is an old deal we're talking about here. Now, look at the relationship of Jehovah to the so-called chosen people. It wasn't because they, wove the great tapestries, or they made the best sandals, or that they built great empires, or made great jewelry, or great lovers of women, or whatever. What was the reason why Jehovah was protecting, loving, and adoring the chosen people? One word. They were obedient. The relationship between the Father and the Son, you see, is one of obedience. That's what gets you the power and security that the Father offers you. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is His name. The Bible is telling you about the animus. The Bible is telling you what God and this Father figure is. It's belligerent. Remember, you're going to it because you want protection, because you have no security inside yourself. And it's going to do its number. It's going to do its dance. Don't blame it. It's doing what it was paid to do. Paid with psychological energy. There's one other important psychological complex that we need to look at, and that's called identification. And we all do it. You have to identify with your heroes and things, otherwise, you couldn't survive. Identification is that you identify with your parents and the good side of, your heroes and so on and so forth. So it's a natural, healthy drive. But again, it's taken to extremes in certain situations. The extreme of it is known as the identification with the object of one's hate. The identification with the object of one's hate? Meaning you hate something, but you identify with it? Why would you do that? Now, when states and people are unhealthy and not sovereign, they give their power away to demagogues and champions who possess the ability to lead them anywhere. The slave has an ambivalent relationship with the master. He may despise the master, but he may also envy him and need his attention and affection. Because we do need. We are in dependence. You are a slave of the approval and the needs of others. And if you don't have it, look what happens to you. Now, the slave has an inferiority complex and does not think or act for himself. In fact, he prefers that others do the thinking for him. In return for this, he offers service, work, and above all, obedience. It's the master versus slave. Now, see, of course, hate is in the eyes of both. The whole relationship is based on hate. But the slave is thinking, well, this guy can kill me. So, instead of death, slavery, death, all right, done deal, slavery. Just give me a few cushions every time, once in a while for my prison cell. And a little salt in my bowl of gruel, and I'm happy. Give me chains of iron instead of gold, and hey, brother, go and do whatever you want. Go and murder and mutilate in my name. I don't care. I'm happy. Glenn Parton said, "We have internalized our masters," which is a well-known psychological response to trauma. Ah, see, trauma again. When faced with the overwhelming terror, ha ha ha. Haven't we heard that word recently? Quite a lot. The human mind splits, with part of itself modeling itself after the oppressor. It is an act of appeasement. Look, you're saying, I'm like you, so don't harm me. Simply called identification. A New York Times CBS poll noted that only 6% opposed military action, while a substantial majority favored war, even if many thousands of innocent civilians are killed. Simultaneously, Bush's approval rating has soared. Like all tyrants and demagogues, Adolf Hitler didn't force himself into power, he was voted in. Identification with the object of one's hate. Here's a couple of extreme examples of it, because this thing takes many forms. A female, in fact, identification complex is very much in the female, is an aspect of the female psyche. Here's two extreme examples of it to make the point. Say, for instance, you have a very ambivalent relationship with the father because the father, and rightly so, the father has in fact wounded you at some point in your youth. And you have a primal wound created by the father left, the father hurt you, whatever. It happens. You hate the father immensely for the wrong that he did, and you should. That hate is perfectly legitimate. But if you hate the father too much, it will often prevent a woman from integrating in society. Because the father is also the boss, you see, the senior, the state, the system. So your hate for your father prevents you from winning in the world. So then the ego now has to think, well, how do I make a compensation? So what the female psyche often does is it identifies with the object of its hate. And here's a couple of examples of it. And this is physicalizing it, where it's a woman, but it's not really a woman, it's a man. It's a person saying, I want to be male. Because I'm in deep hatred of my father, haven't worked it out, I'm not resolving it, don't know how. But I need the attention. I need to make it in the system. And if I'm in rebellious against the Saturnian system, I'm getting nowhere. And I have a healthy drive that wants to succeed and get somewhere and have a good life. So you're in a what's known as a catch-22 situation. And you resolve it in these ways that are known as sublimation. And they're extreme. It's through sublimation. And we all do this to a certain extent. You think you don't have something, or you think that you're without something, and then you find a substitute for it. This is a very powerful archetype, this identification. But there's another version of the same thing. Only we know it as rebellion. It's the opposite side of the coin. It's like, hey, I'm not playing into all of that. I hate the father and the system and all that bogus stuff. Going to school, getting up in the morning, going and getting a job, all that straight up and down square stuff. You're in hatred of it, but you're not going to identify with it. You're going to say, hey, I rebel against it. Now, you can argue which is the healthier drive. I don't know. And then you had a whole culture of it here in the 60s. But see, what is rebellion really? Isn't it really the other side of the coin of the subservience? In Rome, no one complained when Caligula made his horse the emperor. That's the identification, right, with the object of one's hate. Go ahead, do whatever you want. The rebel goes, to hell with that. I will say something. But do you see that the rebellion is still isn't it dependent on the discipline? On the father? It's still tied to the actions of the father. The rebel is a healthy in a way because he's seeing the dumbed downness. He's seeing the utter control and the gaga people. They're acting like sheeple. So the rebel tries to, in his own way, as dysfunctional as it is, he's trying to say, but I don't buy into all of that. I see it as a lie. And how can you not see it as a lie? We've got a one-party system happening here. We've got blustering maniacs who are going to push it down everybody's throat with lie upon lie upon lie. Because you see, look, they say, look, you want to live in a box where you can hear the toilet flushing next door and with some slumlord, we can accommodate you. You want to pay through the nose for a useless car, we can accommodate you. You want to go ahead and live in a dead-end, get yourself a dead-end job in which you're stuck in scale labor for the rest of your life, the system can absolutely accommodate you. You want to buy into a false lie and believe a lie after lie after lie to cover the other lies, we absolutely can accommodate you. You want to live in a world where you have a political system of tyrants where you can vote for them to go and mass murder, we can accommodate you. But if you want to live in a world where